So now that we've learned how to edit and run code, let's talk about how we actually use this, because you very rarely just write a code, run it, and then walk away. What you usually do is play around with the code like you're conducting an experiment, because that's literally what you're doing. So in this case, we're going to start taking a look at the data from our experiment. We've got the number of antinodes, the frequency, and the wavelength for each of our trials. And what we're going to do is take this as our starter code. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it with Control-C, and then I'm going to come into this code cell here and paste it with Control-V. So this is not a code cell up here. This is part of the text cell, and I'm telling you what code to use. But I want you to copy and paste it in so that you've got a little bit of ownership of it, so that you can feel free to, or feel encouraged to start playing around with it more. So here what we're doing is we're getting the ratio between frequency in and frequency 0. Now this looks like a lot, but it's actually divided up into some nice pieces. You notice both times we're accessing data frame. So I got a number here where I'm accessing data frame. I got a number here where I'm accessing data frame. Remember, data frame has all of our information in here. The data frame is actually a whole array of information, and you can put any information in this you want. But how do I access a single value, right? How do I pull out this 30, for example? How do I just say I want this value here? Well, if you notice, it's in this grid pattern. It's in a column labeled by frequency, and it's in a row labeled by number 2. So really what I'm doing here is saying, okay, I want you to go to data frame. I want you to look at the frequency column. So this first square brackets that's called frequency is telling Python, I want you to go to the data frame here, and I want you to go to the column called frequency. Ignore everything else. Don't worry about number of antinodes. Don't worry about wavelength. Just look at frequency. Okay? But then how do I tell it to get to row number 2? Well, what I do is I put in another pair of square brackets. So the first square bracket looks for a column title. The second square bracket looks for a row number. So this is frequency in. So that's telling it to look for the thing called frequency, and then the row called in, and there it is, 30. So when it pulls in this value here, it's going to know to look for the thing called 30. Well, in frequency for a column, in for a row, it's going to look there and it's going to find 30. So what is this one doing? Well, it's also looking in the column called frequency, but now it's looking in row 0. So Python does this weird thing where it starts counting at 0. You get used to it a while. So think of this as row number 0, row number 1, row number 2. Just don't think about it. You'll get used to it. And so now it's going to go to frequency. It's going to go to row number 0, and it's going to find 10. So it's going to take 30 and divide it by 10. Let's see if that gives us the correct answer. Click here to run. Lo and behold, we get a row of a ratio of 3.0. That's kind of cool. Now, I might decide I want to start playing around with this a little bit more. Maybe I want to look at frequency number 1 instead. We'll click and run that. Notice it gives me a different answer, because now it's looking for row number 1, where it has a frequency of 20. So it's taking 20 divided by 10. That's an answer of 2. So that's kind of cool. I can also change this 0, right? I sort of defaulted this to 0, but maybe I want to look at the ratio of frequency 2 to frequency 1. I could change this value to an m, make this m equal to 1 and this n equal to 2. Click run. And now it's looking for row n and row m, and that gives me a ratio of 1.5. But wait, there's more. I don't have to just change the row. I could also change the column, right? Because this is just the name of the column called frequency. I could look at the column called wavelength, copy and paste that in here, and now I can find the ratio of 2 wavelengths. And I get something different. I get a 0.67. But wait a minute, I had a 1.5 earlier, and I know that 1.5 is 3/2, and this one is 2/3. Wait a minute, if I flip these, ooh, I get a 1.5 again. Okay, see, now I'm doing some physics. Now I've gone from doing some coding to doing some physics, because now I'm starting to look for patterns. And the code allows me to do that because it allows me to swap things out and treat this like an experiment where I get to investigate different things.